All right. Welcome. Happy Saturday. How's everyone's Saturday going? Um, I sometimes feel sad that I have to give you this disclaimer, but I do, or elsewise I'll get a letter in the mail from someone's current team. So, haven't had a letter in a couple of years, so hopefully all things are fine. But here's my disclaimer. I do not know Dolores Cannon in form. I am not affiliated with the current or past Cannon team. Some of the views that will come through is from a being in spirit, right? So the being in form could have had a different opinion. As beings in form do, they grow. Dolores doesn't like to repeat herself. So what that means is she says something, she teaches it when she expands like a normal being in essence, in spirit. The spirit expands, learns, and grows, and there could be a different expression. Um, and that's for living people, not just people in spirit as well. So you don't hold the same views all the time, right? So this is my disclaimer. The person who was alive may have had a different view. The person in spirit may have expanded. Do you do that? Do you imagine that in the afterworld that you will expand your view as well? I'm not in the afterworld in that sense, but my views are expanding and changing all the time. Yeah. Um, so we're going to go ahead. I have been sensing a lot of angst in the collective, a little bit of frustration. There's a lot of uh, rage from people and general cognitive dissonance about New Earth, about the various timelines, about where we are collectively headed. So let me tell you some things about how I operate. I am a prophetic channel. I look at the future based upon the majority of the collective. The majority of the collective. So that could possibly be a very 3D perspective. And some of you come in and you're like, that's on my timeline. And I want to say to you that that's quite true. It could be that you have expanded beyond that. And all of us together will be very patient, merciful, and tolerant of people who have and haven't. We don't need everyone to be where we are. Does that feel about are we explaining that the way that you want to hear it? I hope so. I hope this sits well with everyone because it's a big message from Dolores in Spirit today that not everyone's going to be where we are. So when she comes through me and gives these overarching collective timelines for both 3D Earth and New Earth, there could be differences in where you are individually. You would think people understand that, but I'm not sure. I'm just not really sure based upon some of the comments I'm getting coming from YouTube in particular. I'm not sure that everyone understands that. So she wanted me to put it out there for you first thing that I'm a prophetic channel. She's going to come through, see through my eyes, and share with you things. This is your opportunity to go direct through her, as direct as that can be with me in the middle. And she's going to come in. This is how conscious channeling works, which is different than mediumship. Mediumship is what she calls listening. Mediumship is when she says something and I repeat it. We do that. So many people are mediums these days. Many people know how to do that. Conscious channeling is when she just jumps on in my body while I'm awake and aware of it, takes over my words, my thought streams, and just does what she wants to do, which is happening now. It's happening now. As soon as we start thinking about her, she just comes on in. So this is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for people who want to connect with her spirit as it is right now from beyond the veil and ask your questions. All right, so this is going to be question oriented. So many people say, but I want to hear about this and I want to hear about that. And you know what I often say? If go through the work, it's there in my work. We answer a lot of questions that are probably in another video. But the second thing I would say is ask us. Being live with us is your opportunity to ask, right? And it's your opportunity to do that. And if Dolores feels like it's a question that would really benefit everyone to hear from, not just a personal reading, she might answer. All right. So this is what we're going to do today. New Earth timelines. And when you ask a question, she will give you the New Earth timeline and the current collective New Earth timeline and the current collective 3D timeline. Does everyone understand how we're going to do it? Are you ready? Yeah? She's ready. She's ready to put all your doubts at rest, all your fears, anything that you're deeply afraid of, anything you're concerned about, no matter what it is. Go right ahead in the chat. If you're new to my channel, because of trolling, I've unfortunately had to, for live readings, because it's so distracting, I've had to go ahead and put that I only want people to talk on my channel and chat with me if they've been a subscriber for at least 60 minutes. So hold out, and we might get to you in 60 minutes if we're still here, or you can make it for the next one. Oh, perfect question from Arian. You guys check her out on TikTok. She's pretty fun. Arian Gabriella. What are the major themes and challenges right now for each timeline? Very good question. She says, for the current collective 3D timeline, what you can expect is massive cognitive dissonance. What you can expect is that you are concerned that you are blocked and you continue to use that unique phrasing. I wonder, and I do urge you to think about this practically, if you're putting all of that energy in the consciousness of the word blocked, the SC is going to pick up on that and say, there it is, and there we are. So you aren't blocked. It's just that there's something really tricky going on in the awakening of people who feel stuck and feel blocked. It becomes an intense pressure from society to be different than how you are. You're not blocked. You're just different than how you were. And you can expect to roll with those changes or continue to say, I'm blocked. You're not blocked. I just want to give you that encouragement. I want you to hear me with the SC, not with your fears, not with that part of the brain that has a fear. Because right now, the Ascension update for the 3D collective is that you keep saying, I'm stuck, I'm blocked, I don't hear my guidance, I don't know what's coming. And the truth is, you don't need to know what's coming. You need to know where you are right now and how dishonest you're being with yourself, how downright mean you're being to yourself. I just really want to send out that encouragement today that 3D is awakening at an increasingly fast rate. I used to call it the great shift, and now I call it the quickening. The quickening is the word right now that most clearly describes where the 3D collective is on that timeline. You are vacillating between the third dimensional consciousness. You dive deeply into 4D, the fourth dimensional consciousness, but you dip your toe in 5D and you go, oh, no, no. The water's too hot or the water's too cold. You're dipping your toe in and you say, well, if I do that, if I can hold this much of a 5D consciousness in deep compassion and service for humanity, if I can commit to this, stand outside of my fears for a little while and dip my toe in the pool of 5D, then that means, and then you insert in the blank, I don't care. I don't care about people. If I'm just focusing on being love, extending that light, sharing and servicing the world, if I'm doing that, I will be told that I am careless, that I am just floating around in the clouds, that I'm on a mountain somewhere, and that I obviously am not with it, that my head is buried under a rock. Those are things that people will tell me. This is what you say to yourself. So I want to ask you, if people told you that, are you going to consider the source? Or are you going to keep saying, I'm blocked, and I just need to focus on something else right now. I don't need to worry about the subconscious. I don't need to worry about the higher self because I'm just worried about paying my bills and general survival. That is a consciousness of fear. It's not a low-level consciousness. It's a strong level consciousness. There's a strength in that fear that's holding you in a place of being in survival mode. So you dip your toe into 5D, but you're not really swimming. You give many excuses. You say, well, I need a life raft. I need to go through that. That's not safe, is the biggest thing that most people still stuck in 3D are currently complaining about. So you can spend your life waiting to feel safe, or waiting on that life raft, or that time frame where everything feels safer, or you can jump in and swim with the rest of the world. And I say the rest of the world because right now you are developing and pioneering a new form of consciousness between 4D and 5D. And if you're still letting the third density win daily by your fears of not having enough, whether it be money or love or connection, not having enough, that will hold you back. You will be waiting on that to happen before you get in the 5D pool. Do you see what we mean? You'll be waiting on a day when one day you can retire, when one day, this is what about 50% of the overarching collective of 3D is doing, is waiting on one day when the investments get better, waiting on one day when the real estate market shifts, waiting on one day when the cryptocurrencies rise more, or when the dollar falls. And we'll get to that in a minute. But the dollar's not falling anytime soon. You're going to be waiting a long time. Well, let me tell you something. You don't want it to fall. You think you do, but you don't actually have anything to replace it with. Crypto's not set up to replace it. Your investments aren't replace it because they're backed by the dollar. You don't have a fifth dimensional system to replace that yet. So all of these old systems are falling down around your feet very quickly, but not quickly enough for some who want it to happen fast and faster. But you don't have that middle way consciousness. You are in the process of pioneering that consciousness that can replace all of these systems that you want to go away. But you're not there yet. Be patient with this timeline. As it stands right now, only 32% of the human conscious collective has any general level of spiritual evolution and awakening still. So don't get mad. Just be glad you know the information. And now what are we going to do? What are we going to do together? The dollar's not ready to go either in the 3D timeline or the 4D timeline. 5D timeline, you can tell me all day long that you're not operating by any funds, but I'd say you're telling me a big old story. Do you find me a person who uses no money, and we can talk? Somewhere down the line, you will still need a currency, whether you're using the American dollar or some other currency in another country. You will still be utilizing a current currency printed or created by your government. There are very few people, less than 1.5% of the current human population, can survive off of cryptocurrency alone or service and trade. You're not there yet, not even in a 5D earth. You're not there yet, or you wouldn't be seeing people around you who are still utilizing it, and you would not need it. So now what currency you use has nothing to do with where you are in your spiritual evolution. Please don't misunderstand me. However, we're not there yet as a whole. People who live in 5D Earth, who are on zero currency system and zero politics and zero war, don't see. They don't even visualize or hold the capacity to be in the density of 3 and 4D. They can't see you. They don't know you exist, and you don't know they exist. So this isn't a matter of it existing or not. You know it exists, but you're not there if you still are using current 3D structures. Do you see what I mean here? So in this way, you can look forward to some system collapsing slowly in the 3D consciousness. In the 5D consciousness, you don't need to worry about it because you're not there yet, but you can shine your light into it and begin to slowly change your lives. The majority of Earth is on a 4D consciousness. So you have 32% currently at 3D. And more than 75%, around that, I want to give strict numbers here. I was never a mathematician, but around 75% operating in 4D and dipping their toe into 5D. And very few people can hold the true fifth density consciousness in their form. Now, we know you're already doing it in other timelines and other parallel realms. But that's not something you need to worry about. That is another aspect or division of the human soul, experiencing that in another personality, another essence, another lifetime. Doesn't matter if it's past or present or future, it's just a realm that's parallel to you. And when you're ready for it, you'll dip on over to that consciousness and you'll dip out of this one. You can tell I've been listening to Pamela's teenagers lately. When they want to leave, they say, "Oh, I'm dipping out." And so many of you are saying that about 3D. I'm dipping out. I don't want this. I don't want that. Wonderful. That's a great spot that you're in to pioneer the new earth. Granted, you're already there in your 5D consciousness, which is already present and waiting. You just aren't aware of it, and they aren't very aware of you. They don't need to be. In that 50 dimensional consciousness, which is waiting for everyone. That's where you're going. That's where you're going. But it isn't a leaving of this planet. Only a few people are aware of their fifth density consciousness and can hold on to it for even a moment before the 3D distracts you and pulls you in, and it's gotcha once more. So remember that. Remember that. Sure, 5D currently doesn't use money, but if you do, this part of your soul wants to. And that's a big part of what we need to share today, right? So in this 3D timeline, You won't see the full collapse of money until 2029. That's your current timeline. You won't see also, because you've transcended it, you won't see these crustal shifts. Now this is just using the perspective of how I see you currently going towards. Just looking at where you're resonating right now, and this could change. You don't have these crustal shifts that are going to be devastating to billions of people simultaneously, or a massive solar flash. That isn't due to you. And at the very soonest, with the 3D timeline of those two things coinciding together, that won't happen until 2030, midway through 2030, around June, you can expect, if the timeline doesn't shift. But the thing is, it does, and it will, and you are exceeding these timelines. You are transcending them at an ever increasing, wonderful rate. You can change that individually and collectively, and you likely will. What you're going to see instead on the 3D timeline is continuation of the dollar currency, but less backing by the governments after 2030, because the governments will shift and how they run will completely shift by 2033. Okay? So you don't need to worry about that. The new governments that you're building as you build 5D from 3D structures, these new governmental systems are beyond anything that you can put your finger on. It's not something I can describe to you, because you'll say that's not possible. You'll say that's not possible, but I'll pull Pamela out of this trance. I didn't mean to put her in it, and we'll go ahead and continue with your questions. She just does that. Sometimes she just takes over, and there we are. It's trance time. Okay. Trying to scroll back, but let's see. So those are the major things. I think we covered no, she said no crustal shift until 2030. That's big. And even then we can transcend it. She said dollar's not collapsing until 2029 because we don't need it to. We're building 5D on 3D Earth currently right now, versus just waiting. The old way, she says, was just waiting to go to, as if we were to leave after we pass and go to another realm in 5D. That's not the way. The way now is building that here from where we currently are in the collective, she says. She said this before, but we'll repeat it again. There are 3 major cryptocurrencies that really pop. And then go, now is the time. You're not going to get a better rate. It's not going to be that they drop and then you can go in. Those times are over. If you want to get in, you're going to be sad that you didn't if you are a cryptocurrency, but they crash out of the sky by January of 2029 on the current 3D timeline. So that's something that you do need to know. All right. Now, granted, I always have to give you these disclaimers when we talk about things health or legal or investment oriented. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not qualified to help you make these decisions. This is intuitive advice that comes in through channeled information and is to be utilized for entertainment purposes only. Have to say that or YouTube gets mad. Advertisers don't advertise for you when you don't say the right things. It's crazy. There's something in regards to that I do want to share with you, that she was just talking with me about this morning. And she says, YouTube won't be the head honcho for creators. Because I was really complaining about, oh, people love you, people hate you, they subscribe, they unsubscribe, and how do I keep you? I want to be able to share these things with you, but you keep leaving and coming and going. And she said, oh, YouTube's not going to be the thing by 2027. A new dog is in the fight and rises quickly. So that's interesting for creators, that you have this fifth dimensional timeline of being able to experience a new capacity to share your healings and channelings and your creative information to the world. All right. Is there a time when we all open our gifts is the next question. She says, no, because Earth isn't set up that way. Earth isn't set up that everyone does everything at the same time anymore, because the last time that happened was back in Atlantis and Lemuria. And many of the extraterrestrial collectives that came through to work with my clients, many of your subconscious aspects came through and said, yeah, there's a reason why we aren't completely awakening all at the same time. No one would learn anything, and this is a planet for learning. So if you did all of that at the same time, this would not be an Earth school, and it still is. The whole purpose for Earth is to learn, grow, and master. So if we did all that, we would not be learning, growing, and mastering. If you know everything, then there's nothing more to know. And then you wouldn't be here. How to heal a mental illness, and can it be cured in one timeline? Not exactly on the topic today, but she'll take it. She said, what I've learned is that everything, all aspect of the subconscious can be healed just by touching upon one. You'd be surprised the power of just meeting that one aspect of your subconscious, no matter what timeline they're experiencing, that can and does often affect all of the other aspects in the subconscious. And then you don't need those same lessons anymore. Do you see how that works? How powerful that is? That was something that I learned in only a few years of my work on this planet. So yes, it can be cured in one timeline, but it's only because you reach the exact timeline where all the lessons were. And that's what your subconscious can do. Now, I'll give you that, but I will also tell you, with that being stated, that sometimes you're not meant to. And I know you don't like that, but sometimes that, what you're calling a mental illness, is just another perspective of the soul. What you're calling a mental illness is just another way to grow. What you're calling a mental illness is there sort of like a rock between a hard place, just rubbing you and others the wrong way to help others because of certain contracts that you experience that you carry over through various timelines. And in that case, it may not be meant to go away. That's not something we always want to hear. But who are you helping? Your subconscious can tell you. It may not tell you why, but it'll tell you who you're helping. It's not always for you. Wuto Termote, I'm not touching that question with a 250,000-foot pole. I won't even say the word on this channel, because when I do, I get shadow banned. That's why I really hope, as a prophetic channel, that what Dolores brought through today about another platform being available. And no, it's not Rumble, but there is another platform available. But I'm not touching that, because that's when YouTube comes in and goes, no. Yeah. How will Europe be affected by the ongoing war in Ukraine? She says, in the 3D timeline of that, you are making unique changes, particularly the UK. You're making unique changes in your government that have been protecting you from a lot of repercussions of that. So you will be much more protected financially than you think. Now, there is a lot of political turmoil in Europe. There's another prime minister stepping down and another one coming out. I know you just had all that, but it's about to happen again. Someone else is not going to make it. And that's because the 5D timelines are in convergence with the 3D timelines and going a little like this. And this is when you get the musical chair effect in politicians and prime ministers and people just stepping out when they can't handle the shifts into 5D. That's what you can expect. You are very protected otherwise. I think she answered this question already, but we'll see if she has anything more to say on this. Do we need to worry about the pole shift or abrupt crustal displacement? She said, again, I really want to encourage you that your current timeline has no abrupt crustal displacement. We've got to say it in many different ways until you hear. But I'm telling you, I don't see an abrupt crustal displacement until after 2030. And even then you can shift. So what you should be more deeply concerned about is the quick shifts in the political systems and the quick shifts in your own cognitive dissonance about how these structures are collapsing. And you want them to, but you don't want them to. You want the old, but you want the safety and the financial security of the old way, but you also want it to collapse so that you can have a new way that isn't here yet. That's something that concerns me about your current alignment. So the pole shift is happening in increments. Now, we've discussed this before when I came through the Council of Nine with Pamela. We've discussed this in other ways before. The pole shift isn't massive. It's in smaller increments throughout the next 15 years. So in the 5D timeline of that, you'll barely feel it. And you'll be seeing other people around you having some effect of earthquakes, fires, flooding, landslides. Some of the same things you're currently experiencing will continue for the next 15 years. And then it will slow down as Earth settles out. And by 2040, Earth should have made a complete settling of those pole shifts to where you can no longer have these many floods, these hurricanes, these deeper concerns with as effects of the pole shift. You should be more alarmed not about a solar flash. Many of you have solar flash confused with solar flare. The flares are big. Those are getting worse. You're going to have hotter summers and colder winters. You're going to have different experiences as effects of this minor, just in incremental polar shifting. And the solar flares have nothing to do with the solar flash. The solar flash is a larger consciousness opening, a bright white light, not that can be seen in the 3D physical sky, but something that can be felt. Now, does it correlate in the same time frame as all of the solar flares? Yes, but one is not causing the other. This is a shift in your consciousness, that solar flash. And this is what we need to pioneer the current timeline of the 5D consciousness. So that solar flash has been happening for the past 2 decades. So it can't be something that lights up the sky and makes everyone freak out. You're not aligned to that kind of fear. Do you understand? That's not something. There's so much fear right now that if you had an extraterrestrial disclosure and they came down from the sky in the next few years, your 3D governments would likely shoot at it. So over the course of the next 10 years, you're going to be having visitations that are seen and expressed and shown in the skies, and no one can deny it. But people will talk about it and say, yes, we're going to look into that. Yes, that was likely an ET interference. You will notice in 3D governments, particularly in the United States, a lot of crafts shot down over the course of the next 15 years. The timeline is that you see them, and then suddenly they're gone because your governments tried to shoot at them or did shoot them down. So that's the unfortunate news that I have to share with you for ET disclosure. The positive news is that while you're not really experiencing these bigger disclosures because your government still don't want you to, there are things that they cannot and will not deny. And the biggest one's coming up around 2025. So that's not far in the 5D alignment to experience some contact with some Venusian beings. And that's what science will discover, is that there is life on Venus. So that will be something you do not expect. That's your current alignment. And all of the councils that work with me are excited to share that with you. Next question. With all the Earth changes now and in the future, how high will sea level get? She said, well, I don't know that in numbers, but it gets high enough that some people will just move. Some people will just move. What I'm concerned about is that alignment currently for 3D Earth is devastating by 2030. It's a problem here and there, but it's really a devastating by 2030. It might be a really good idea to be on high land if you are currently living around big water, or to be in non-flood zone properties, because many of the properties that aren't flood zoned are still in a great place, and that you don't have too much to worry about. But if you're living right on the ocean, you're going to have something to worry about by 2030, and in various hurricanes headed your way until then. Open your eyes on it. No fear. Just know that there are some things coming with water, and it's either too much or too little all around the world. You're getting all sorts of rains and floods, and then droughts, severe droughts, particularly for the US by 2030. Until then, it's fairly sustainable. Christina Velick, any way to help loved ones move to New Earth when they have no idea? She said, do you know that you're interrupting their contracts when you do that? I want to tell you to stay out of your loved ones' businesses. That's their business. And when you go in and say you want them to be different, you remove their learning. It's like dragging a kid out of the classroom. Do you want them to grow or not? Back up and let them grow. Hands off. It's love them, be patient with them. This is for your learning, to be patient with them as well, and to love them exactly how they are, no matter their beliefs. They think that we're weirdos too, right? They're probably looking at all of us going, oh man, that one's just, who do we need to call? Do we need an intervention? They're talking to aliens. Next question. I'm waiting for spirit baby to come into my womb. Is there a specific higher purpose? Why am I having to wait? She said, when something isn't happened, the purpose is that it's not time yet. So much like waiting on boiling water, when you're waiting on something you know is a soul contract, put it out there, give it to the cosmos, and leave it alone. Don't wait. Just go about your life. When something's supposed to happen, it's supposed to happen, and we can't dictate that kind of thing. So connect with activities that you would as a mother. Be mothering towards people. When you want something like that, you need to put your energy in alignment with being a mother. I'm going to try to get back on topic now, because we're having a lot of questions that are really not in alignment with the topic of 3D timelines and 5D timelines. So we're looking for questions about timelines for 3D Earth and timelines for 5D Earth. Rakura Wehaha says, how is the current sun? She says, this isn't looking good in alignment in terms of solar flares. It's off the charts. It's worse than it has ever been. And that's affecting you. That's affecting your ascension process. That's affecting and causing the rising of a big energy of rage and anger, resentment. There's a wrath in the collective, and the solar flares are causing headaches, extreme exhaustion, and it's not going to tone down for 3D Earth until 2027. You'll have a few years worth of a break on the current timeline, and then those solar flares are tremendously bad between 2031 and 2033 again. So you're going in stages with that, with how your planetary sun is being affected in consciousness and by consciousness of 5D. Where are we? Question mark. She says, you're right where you need to be. It's very 4 steps forward, 3 steps back. A little bit like my YouTube channel. I talk about a spiritual perspective of transgender, and you guys just went mad. Some of you were lovely too. There was a lot of like really lovely comments as well. When is the best time to connect to the subconscious mind and the best method? She said, well, I would like to say that QHHT is likely the best method, but I would be being a bit much in the ego. Your method, you've got to find that for you. I can't take that from you or guide you in that. Your method. Keep going. There's no one best way, but I can tell you what is not a great way. Get out of the fear. That's what holds you back. Get out of the fear. Well, what if you just only operated here on YouTube and in your life? What if you only operated in love and trust in the power of your subconscious and in the power of source and cosmic source? And there's no methodology to get to that. So some of you with these analytical brains think that I'm going to hand you a blueprint to consciousness, but consciousness has to be lived. So the best way to connect to the subconscious is to be conscious and be conscientious. Be conscious. Be aware. Let's see. Can we expect to see an update in universal laws? She said, you're not ready for an update in universal laws. People aren't in oneness. And where you're going isn't exactly oneness for 5D Earth timelines. Where you're going is something that's inclusive. It's a middle way consciousness where both duality and oneness exist, and everything is within a field of unification and equality. Is there fear in 5D? No. Absolutely not, she says. How do we know the higher self? How do we hear them? She says, you don't hear them. The first rule is nothing is separate. In this universal law, what I became aware of is that it's not about the senses. It's about living as your higher self would, speaking as your higher self would, feeling and aligning your thought streams as your higher self would. That level of awareness is how you instantaneously connect with the subconscious. How to let go of fear. She's done this before. I know what's about to happen. Did you see that? Did you hear it fall on the floor? It's like letting go of a pen. You're holding on, and squeezing the fear, right? You don't need to navigate this plane. The subconscious has its own grand design, and that design will take over. So there isn't a method to let go of fear. There are many inductions. You can count up or count down or breathe a certain way. There are many things that I could share with you that you likely already know as practitioners. But there is no design to let go of something that doesn't exist. You're going to Squeeze that pen until it breaks, and then you're going to be squeezing your own hand. When the circumstance of your fear is no longer there because you've squeezed it to death, what then? Will you walk around wondering when it'll come back, when all the little pieces on the floor have come back together and that pen's going to come get you? No, no. The fear doesn't exist. It's not real. It's like trying to kill a ghost. Notice I'm still here. Boo. Cute. Oh, that's sweet, artistic world, what you just said. I'm in a river floating in 5D. Cindy says, when will others join me? She said, I don't know. I'm not your psychic. But I will say this. You're in a river. Others don't need to join you because there's an aspect of the subconscious that's already swimming with you, right beside you. And you can see it come out in them every now and then. When you're around people and you say something because you feel compelled to do it, something just comes on through. I didn't really believe in channeling when I was there, but sometimes you know how when you just say something and the subconscious makes itself known and it just flies out of your mouth. You're doing that right now. Many of you listening today are doing that right now. Doesn't that feel good? You think, oh, I finally did that. Something came through that was meant to invigorate and enlighten people. And then the people go, then you go, oh, no, that really didn't go well. That's the stage you're in when it comes to communication and connection to other people. When you're experiencing 5D and other people's, they're throwing their raft in the way and throwing logs in the river. And remember, that energy is a threat to their safety. They perceive a 5D consciousness as something that's either going to take away their money, deplete their bank accounts, or make them have to feel. And they don't want that. So remember that. Be patient. Keep floating down your river. The only thing you can do is be an example. You don't need to know when others will join you. I know so many of you are looking for your team right now, your soul's team, what you call your soul family. But they're doing what you're doing. They're out there looking and then shriveling back whenever they're not met very well by other people. Don't take it personally. Know that you won't be met well initially by other people. Then they might be equally afraid of saying something that's going to catalyze you. So you're all in that boat kind of rolling around together, not sure who believes in the water or not until you start throwing each other in. Everybody has their own way. You used to ascend collectively, and now that's different. Next question. In the new earth, what is the role for landowners and land operators and the people who consume on it in the context of entire Gaia's energy field? How should all work and live together? She said, well, let's just remove that word should, because you're all learning from each other. Remember, you're in the boat together. But the role for landowners right now is to become more aware of permaculture, to become less contingent and reliant on your totalitarian agriculture methodology. Now, this just really wasn't something we talked about in my time. It wasn't something most people are aware of. But now you can't sustain your crop anymore, and yet you kind of keep doing the same thing and expecting something different. How about do something different when you want to sustain your crop and your animals? Industrialized farming by 2027 all over Gaia will no longer be viable. It just won't work anymore from that point in time. for you. And yet some of you will continue to attempt to do it. It won't work anymore after that point in time. So, of course, you can work together and live together, but when the system itself still hasn't changed to really align with the new way of new earth living for all of Gaia, not many people are really doing this at a bigger level. So, what you're going to do by 2028 and 2029, 5D, you're going to just be doing it for yourselves. You're going to be starting with smaller plots of land and beginning new permaculture techniques. You're going to be sharing and holding classes with each other over it and talking to other bigger industrial farmers about it. And when it comes to consumption, there will be interesting things that happen. By 2029, a lot of people will be very interested in taking small portions of stem cells from an animal and then growing lab meat. And then there are a lot of cancers that come as a result. So it's that feeling of I can't win for losing because what do I replace it with? So that's the unfortunate news of where meat consumption is going. It's going to come to the extent that people realize that they just can't continue it anymore. But you do begin to create food from your own properties, no matter where you live. No matter where you live, you don't have to be on top of a mountain to do this. Many techniques are starting to help you understand how to grow food. From high-rise condos in New York City, you'll be growing your food. And that's because you have to. And this is something that I wish I had a bit of a better thing to tell you, a better outcome, that you do this because it comes to the point that your planet is becoming a dust bowl and you have to do it. Hopefully we can shift because, as you know, 5D Earth is already in complete, beautiful, sustainable permaculture. People don't eat animals in 5D Earth. This is not a judgment. This is just what I've seen. But not many people are willing yet to change themselves individually on this. So we have a little ways to go. Question from Argentina. I'm Freddie the musician. Well, hello, Freddie the musician. She's waving back at you. Hi. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to ask a question and ask Dolores the question. Walter, I'm going to skip that next one about silent voices in your head because not exactly the topic she's wanting right now. To tie in with Sophia's question, Miss Limitless is asking, will soul remediation plans work? Dolores said they are, but this is a slow burning candle and you're only about halfway down. So by 2029 and 2030, a lot of these plans start to work, but only because you're forced into it. Vertical farming, in regards to that question, she says that does increase exponentially by 2029. Gesara, with that question, she said that is something that never fully existed in the way that you think. It was deeply misunderstood, and it will not save you. It's not coming back, and it didn't fully exist in the first place, she said. So deep conspiracies floating around, deep misunderstandings that turn into conspiracies is how she wants to answer that. Quantum financial system, she says, you are not ready. You are not ready. How do you know if you're in 3D and 5D? From the next questioner, she says, it's not that way because a dimension is a measurement, not exactly a place. And the density is how you're experiencing that, and then you measure it, but it's not actually a place. It is an energy field. An energy field. So you are, again, 32% of the collective in 3D, over 75% primarily in 4D, and very few are permanently in 5D. But what you're doing, she said, don't let this discourage you. What you're doing is dipping in and out, dipping in and out. And every thought could pull you into 4D or 5D, and then back to 3D if you have a fear that you allow to take over. Next question. How does Dolores see things going through the near future in Middle East in terms of conflicts and openness of people to other people and ideas? She said, in terms of conflict with most of the Middle East, you have another problem in Palestine that continues. You have continuing problems there all the way until 2040 in the current 3D timelines, but you will have, and not without great cost, much more cultural openness of other people's belief systems, beginning by 2030 in the current timeline in most Middle Eastern countries. I think I missed something because the chat just jumped and I was wanting to go in order. Screen flashes. I think my laptop is dying. My energy field keeps like destroying computers. This will be the second one that's on the way out. Don't worry, I've ordered another Mac because you guys have been so supportive that I'm able to do that. So I went ahead and did that, but I'm moving, so I won't be able to open that box until we get it off the truck. Is there going to be a Twitter? She said, She said that's on the way out, down by 2030. It'll be like crickets. She said, do you remember the old MySpace? It'll be that by 2031. Strawberry Rhubarb said, who are you channeling? Well, it's the spirit of Dolores Cannon. Okay. Raven says, I'm a little worried about digital currency dictated by the government like in China. She said, I have some unfortunate things to tell you about China. It's getting more difficult to be there for its citizens. It's not getting better. I don't see a timeline that they are out completely of 3D. I don't see a timeline. I hope that it changes, she says. Don't be worried about digital currency in the UK, the US, the Canada, Italy, France. Don't be worried about digital currency for the majority of people in the collective. You keep hearing things that just aren't true. That's just not happening. You're nowhere near it. And as you are expanding and opening your awareness quicker, there really won't be any need for that. Let's see. Is there, okay, here is another one about currency. Is there a planned takeover for the American government currency? No, not in your alignment, she said. You have transcended that one. Just like that. You're doing great. Layla, that's perfect. She says, I've stopped thinking about where I am in the process. I just go with the flow. 3:33 Mountain Time on that. How do we get in contact with aliens? I'd like to go around for a spin. She said, it's not that they don't wish to contact you. It's that, let me tell you this from the perspective of science. When you travel into space, you put on, if you were an astronaut, you would suit up, oxygen would be piped into your suit, and that would be your current environment. The energy field is the same. They can't densify their bodies physically in order to come be here. They have certain technologies that allow them to densify for short amounts of time, but primarily it's going to be up to you. There will be much disclosure over the next 15 years, but not in terms of them coming down, taking over, or coming down and going for tea for the next 3 hours with you and telling you about their lives, those are, you're becoming more contactee in your experience. You are becoming the contactee. So less abductions, but more contactees, more positive experiences in your next 20-year timeline, more disclosure because beings are coming into your environment for short amounts of time in ways that your governments cannot deny because so many of you are seeing it. Expect that. Expect that kind of disclosure, not coming down and living here and taking over your government's type of disclosure. Don't expect med beds. Don't expect any of that because that is an interference. That would be an interference. You've been given various gifts before that turned into weapons. And if the Venusians and Andromedans gave you a med bed right now, someone would turn it into a weapon. So they can't interfere exactly in the ways that you would like. But there will be many disclosures and much more occurrences of you becoming a contactee because your energy field lightens up so that you can be in their environment. You've got to lighten, become less dense in your thoughts and in your form. You've got to lighten up, quite literally and figuratively, to be able to do that. And many of you are wanting this to be something where you don't have to deal with emotions or thought streams, but this is your way of ascension. Understanding the power of thought and lightening that up would be a really great first step. How do we help someone with mental illness to wake up? Are they trapped in a loop of thoughts? She said, I'm going to say this in a different way because we addressed this before. I'll address it even though it's off topic because it's important. If you're seeing someone as ill, who is the person in the 3D? Might not be the person experiencing the mental distortion. It might be you that's in the 3D. And it might be them playing the role to help wake you up. They're not trapped. They like it in their thought streams. They like it in there. But what if they're there for you? What if they're not ill? What if no healing is required? I'm still scrolling through questions. If you're liking this channeling, please feel free to subscribe. That really helps me out a ton to be able to get this work out there. Hi, N5D. How are you doing? Good to see you. I met you during the time where I first started to channel her. How does the body function within the 5D construct? She says the dense form begins to lighten up in a way that's similar to nuclear fusion. She said, I don't know anything about it, but I learned some things by just watching your scientist on your planet. And the body begins to fire. The brains begin to synapse based upon unique firing sequences that weren't there before. And that's how the density lightens from the physiological standpoint. But it can densify again with a very strong thought stream of hatred, bitterness, resentment, anger, wrath, all of that can immediately become a problem and affect the physiological form again. So the body begins to function in a plasma technology in your 5D timelines. The body will function in this way. One day, you will operate in a way that doesn't just even require oxygen. It will require plasma-based oxygen. All of that by 2045 in your timeline. What are the future opportunities going to look like for jobs, future jobs, and what skills should we learn? She said, please learn farming, please learn regenerative agriculture, um, learn a lot more about how to care for each other. Because a lot of the future jobs by 2040 are exchanges of service in 5D Earth. And most people are all out for themselves in current 3D Earth. Learn a little bit more about artistry. Artists are the new jobs. There are more art-based jobs in 5D Earth future in your current alignment. So many people will be healers and artists. Doctors in the future by 2040 in your current timeline will have healing teams. People who come in and go through all sorts of healing modalities and technologies. So there are jobs in the future by 2040 that I couldn't even tell you about because they don't exist. You are pioneering all types of more creative job opportunities now. Musicians and artists will be sought out more than ever before. Let's see, scrolling through questions. When will the 3-letter agency step aside? Oh, you mean, do you know sign language? All you sign language people out there are like, yeah. um, that one in particular does not step aside until 2032 in the current timeline. And she said, I really hope this changes. She is not thrilled about that. I just want to know if California will be underwater at some point. She said, I can't deny you have various levels of intense flooding coming up this year. 2 years from now. So that's 25. She says 2 years from now, and particularly between 2030 and 2033. But there are points of California that are sequestered off in this energy field, completely headed into New Earth. So that it's almost unbelievable what I'm seeing about your timeline, that so many people in California and Florida on the East and West Coast are almost just pocketed in. And that's how 5D works in that way. Some smaller portions of California and larger portions of Florida are headed in that direction over the next 15 years to be fully protected. Oh, thanks for that, Heidi. Just looking at questions. The Netherlands. Okay. The Netherlands have huge parts below the current sea levels. Is this country ready to protect against sea level rising? She said, you're going to be surprised and not so surprised. The residents of the Netherlands are scientific engineering geniuses, and they already are protected. And as things worsen, they will shift their systems accordingly because they're smart and they're always ready. So according to Dolores, the Netherlands, don't worry. I don't know where that is, Golden Lita, so you'll have to give me more specifics. Can you ask her about recent volunteer warriors who win the light battle? She said there'll always be a light battle. This idea that some of you have about dark no longer being here, darkness no longer being here. Earth is a school. The way that it operates is that you come in and you remember your light and you remember that, and then you stop fighting. That's not on your current timeline for any time soon, but light and dark will inevitably begin to exist simultaneously, blending in with each other to create an entire new consciousness. That's your 2040 timeline. Red Rover says, I'm glad I caught this live. I'm glad to have you. Isn't it good to plant a seed about awakening? She said, your life plants the seed. When did you guys become so bossy about other people's lives? They will wake up when they're ready, but what about the backdrop people? There are many backdrop people in your current environment, and you're wasting your time beating your head against the wall for a being who presents without a soul construct. Now, notice I said presents without. That's the game being played. So, people with the soul construct who do wish for the ascension experiment wish to do it without the idea of harvest. Backdrop people don't understand that. So why are you trying to wake them up? You can plant all kinds of seeds, but you're planting in concrete and then waiting on the concrete to dry. It's a little bit like waiting on paint to dry and then repainting all over it. Because that's what they will do. Will the Kern River rising cause great destruction? Yes. She said yes. That's unfortunately in the timeline. Let's see. Just still scrolling through questions. What is the most exciting new timeline emerging at the moment? From Binta Dixon. Thank you for the question. She says the most exciting thing now is that you are creating a new consciousness. It's not 3D, it's not 4D, it's not 5D, it is everything. It is all dimensional experiences. Now try lightening up a dense form with all of that. No wonder there's angst in the collective. That's exciting because it's new. Because it's something that you haven't done before. You have polaristic energies, you have oneness and completion, and then you have the allowance of all. What is the point of rubber banding the timelines back together just to split off again? She said, well, if you follow by that mindset, your soul would not have made the choice to be here. The point is because you can. The point is you become more conscious in a different way. The point is it's exciting to you. The point is new types of creation, new ways to remember, new ways to evolve, and new ways to love. You could be that kid in the back of the classroom going, what's the point of this exam? Or you could just do it. You're in an exam period right now, and you're studying, but you still don't know, and that's okay. I'm learning too, and I am in this with you. Scrolling through, there's a lot of questions. Hold on. Are there any carnivores in 5D? No. What is the purpose of 5D consciousness? She said, currently, the purpose of expanding into 5D consciousness is that the mind and the body are constructs that are overworked and they require rest. So, the purpose of the 5D construct is always changing based upon your needs. Right now, you're tired. You need a nap. Most of society in 3D is like a grumpy toddler in Target. How can you tell someone is a backdrop? She said, there's no spark in the eyes. And she's getting me this image of just dead eyed people that when you walk around and you don't see a spark, you smile at them and you get nothing back. And this isn't just someone having a bad day, she says. It's that there's no spark of life there. Nobody's home. You see them everywhere now, do you not? Will humans be living longer in 20 years? Yes. Yes, by 20 years, humans will have a 120-year lifespan, but that's because of some of the third dimensional technologies that I do not advise you using. Why do you want to live long? What's the point here? Any suggestions on how to protect sacred feminine? She said, oh, so you think you need protecting? In the true feminist nature, not the political feminist nature, in the true divine feminine nature, you are a warrior. Goddess energy doesn't need protecting. And I never would have used that word in my time, but that's what it is now for Gaia. I seem to have skipped a bunch of things. Again, the chat just I feel strongly about RFK. I knew someone would bring this up. She said, not this election. I agree with you wholeheartedly, but it's not his time. Next time is his time. So positive news for RFK in this timeline, but not for this election, unfortunately. Sorry, US. I agree with you on that, but it's not this time. Okay. Still scrolling through, trying to get back to where I was because the chat jumped again. No cure for cancer by then. By when? By the time frame she projected? She said there are some cures for some cancers by the time frame I projected, but you can't cure everything all at once because some people choose to learn from the construct of cancer, and they choose to teach people around them with the construct of cancer. So in that way, it still can be a 5D construct if grief heals someone. No other beings in all of the galaxies are concerned about death. They're not concerned about it, not because it doesn't happen, but when it's their time, it's their time. They're not trying to outlive anyone. It's this construct that grief is bad, that is uniquely human. I don't see it in other extraterrestrial environments. Still scrolling through questions. Try to keep it on point for the subject line in the title, if you don't mind. Are there many glitches happening around us? Is the next question. And she said, you're on point. That's it right there. You're noticing glitches all over the place because You're 3D for a second, you're 4D for a second, you're 5D for a second, and you are in an old blueprint where you weren't allowed to be all those things at once. And now that interference is lifting so that you can have not a false matrix, but a glorious one. Not a false one, but a free one. Not one that holds you still, but one that lifts you up. But there are many, many glitches in the old matrix system around you in the 3D consciousness that you are observing. Time glimpses, glitches, memory glitches, technology glitches. For those of you asking about the future of certain countries, you're going to need to get very specific with her. All the necklace, I don't think that it has any gems in it, actually. I don't think so. Anya would know because it was a gift from her. What? Was the shapes and coding? Yeah. She said it was more the shapes and the coding involved in it that she liked a lot, and I agree because it reminded me of a new matrix code for New Earth. When I saw it, it immediately reminded me of that, of some of the things I've been seeing when I look at New Earth 5D matrix systems. I love coding. Oh my goodness. I will geek out on you, and we'll be talking about coding for 3 hours. How is healthcare in the new timeline? She said there is a dual timeline happening right now with more technology, AI oriented healthcare that extends life and helps you throughout various problems from cancer to artificial heart valve replacements. But it's too costly. So, simultaneously, while all of these new technological advancements are occurring in your current 5D timeline, you also have this old timeline that's hanging on, but no one can afford it, particularly not in the US. And in the US, that construct is changing, it's breaking. People really aren't going to the doctors anymore in the US because you can't afford it. So there are many, many, many timelines of 3D technologies, old 3D systems crumbling, but new 5D systems have not fully been created yet. And they won't be until 2030. There will be a small increments of growth until then. And then you'll see bigger changes then. And why is this? Because you don't need that. You don't need these medications that you keep putting in your body. You don't need their technologies. You can ask any of my family about this. They'd have to drag me into the doctor. And on a best day, you're lucky that I would just go get a basic mammogram. I didn't want to do these things because I knew that when it was time to go, it was time to go. And I was healthy. I didn't have colds. I didn't have things going on. I didn't need any of that. Not from the 3D medical systems. And if that's the case, and believe me, I struggled in my time just as anyone would with 5D consciousness from my thoughts. I wasn't the easiest person to be around. I didn't have that managed. So why are you connecting that with the body? Spirituality with what the body's doing. The body will go when it goes. And you don't need these 3D systems. They're collapsing around you, all around you. But the new systems haven't been built yet. So in the meantime, what does this force you to do? It forces you to learn how to be healthy. It forces you to grow your own foods. Not having a system to take care of you forces you to take care of yourselves. And this is the nature of 5D, to be independent. Sakshi Haval, you're going to need to be much more specific about India. There's no new financial system this year. Things are that many banks are falling this year, but there's no new financial system arising to replace the falling of some of those bank systems. Two major bank systems in your timeline are collapsing this year and next year. We did cover the pole shifting, Mama Ren, for that question. Just go back on that. I think we did cover industrialized farming and how humans treat animals in this way, so go back on that. Yes, we do already have biofeedback machines, but that wasn't extraterrestrial technology or a gift therefrom. That was created by humans. You guys are asking so generally, and she wants you to get very specific if you have questions about other countries. Because remember, she and I are Americans. We don't know anything about other countries, so the filter is kind of... So get very specific about what you want to know, and I'll ask her if she knows. Will our body's nutritional requirements change? Yes. Yes, you will need a lot less proteins than you currently do. You will need a lot less B vitamins and iron than you currently do. With that being said, I do want to encourage you to not assume that your body is 5D and then you make an intense shift into plant nutrition and experience low B vitamins, low D vitamins, low iron, low proteins. It's going to need to be honored. Do this a little bit at a time. Make these changes a little bit at a time. In the future, you won't have these worries, but this could still take another 15 years to be in that timeline. But right now, so many people are just instantaneously saying, I will not eat these things anymore, but your body has not caught up with the subconscious. Your body hasn't caught up with your energy field yet. Take your time. Be gentle with it. Will Romania be a good place to live for a spiritual family? She said, Romania is behind the times, at least 20 years behind. You have some ways to go before you feel an openness in this country towards true spirituality. And what I mean by true spirituality is just openness towards everyone's ways, both old and new. Romania is very, what's the word you're using? Superstitious. And that could last a while. That takes a while to heal through. Sonia Kampikas, I need you to be more specific. We have so many questions that I'm only taking specific ones now because we've gone through a lot of the general questions. Okay, we'll just take a few more because I'm starting to get that channeling headache. We've been at it for an hour and a half. Okay. Mountain Mama says healing with red light and blue light is available now, although still hard to access. Will there be more healing opportunities using light and sound for the masses? She's happy that you asked this. And she says there will be things that combine light and sound. And when you see light, you hear sound until you cannot differentiate between what is light and what is sound. So this is synesthetic. You will experience a synesthesia that you can command, which means you can heal through clairvoyance. You become clairvoyant through the new technologies that you are creating. Your children are creating them now, but you got about 15 years on that particular technology as it's aligned with your time frame. What does the map of North America look like by 2030? She said it looks very much the same. You should be more concerned about 2032 and 2033. I'm seeing more water in 2030 as a beginning stage of this in the West in California and in Florida, not the very tip of the panhandle, but the other side. But other than this, it looks very much the same. I'm seeing a little bit more water in Louisiana than we've seen before, but not a complete destruction. But there are some areas near these oceans that, near the Gulf of Mexico in particular, that look different. Will the housing and food situations be as bad as in Western countries for Romania, Bulgaria, and Eastern Europe? She said significantly worse until 2030. And then Romania, for Eastern Europe, you have an opposite situation than the States. It looks bad until 2030. And then as it's getting bad for the Americas, it's getting better for Eastern Europe. So you are on different timelines, is what she says. What is the purpose of astral travel? She said the purpose of astral travel is to develop unity consciousness in your physical form as a practical human. Purpose of astral travel is to become a healthier, happier human. How are water resources developing in Germany? Give her a time frame because there's a lot going on there, she says, a lot of shifting, a lot of ups and downs over the next 20 years with water resources in Germany. She says it becomes better in 2031 than the Americas, Canada and France. But it has its moments. It has its moments until 2031 that where it struggles. What is the ET involvement in Moab, Utah? She said it's intense. It's a portal of awareness for everyone who visits the area, and everyone who leaves is permanently changed at the molecular DNA level. It is a DNA activation point. Okay. Do we still reincarnate? She said that's the thing about free will. Some of you will always choose to. But the idea and concept of the prison planet matrix, that's no longer a situation and hasn't been for at least 7 years. You got to let that go because it's not happening anymore. Should Russian people also focus to grow their own food in the next 10 years? She said, oh, you're well ahead of the US. And yes, you should, but you already are. How will free energy be first achieved? She loves the question, and she said the timeline on that is within the next 5 years, all of you will have access to free air filtration and circulation systems, free water purification systems, and free energy that would be in something you put in your homes. So this free energy device is through water initially and through plasma 10 years thereafter. So that's the timeline for free energy. And it's a normal person who isn't even a scientist who captures, he's an engineer who captures the attention of scientists. And he manages to be smart enough to refuse government backup or funding or help. This is how it starts out. Someone just like you, just a normal family man, an engineer. Okay. 2024 election, she said, is a massive disappointment because she said she was really rooting for RFK, and she's disappointed that that isn't in. And it's More of the same is what you get for the 2024 election. So are you insinuating anything here? She said, I'm not making an insinuation that Biden wins, no, but more of the same in terms of two people, one of them suffering extreme memory problems and one of them suffering from some mental illness. So in this way, it's going to be head to head. And the people who need to be in are voices that are still unheard. But that's okay. There will be two powerful choices for the election thereafter. Don't worry, Americans. With electricity, we just answered that question. So just scroll back. Everyone will have access to that, she says, for free electricity coming up within 5 years. Initially, it's not free. It comes out in about a year and a half, but it's expensive. But then by 5 years, it's either free or very low cost. And there are programs that can make it free. So that's an interesting shift. I haven't seen that big of a change in a very long time. No quantum financial system. We're not ready, she said, to answer that one. We're nowhere near that timeline for most people. Yeah. Do I have to help the engineer to achieve free energy? No, he's got it. He's got his sources. He's a smart person. He doesn't need any help. And he's just like a normal person, whoever he is, not someone that anybody knows. Normal family guy who no one knows. Not a popular guy, not anyone backed by any government sources. Yeah. Yeah. All right. The natives in America have long believed that the area will become more tropical in the future. The timeline on that, she says they're right, and the timeline on that is 18 years from now. Yeah. No, it's not Nassim Haramein. He's too popular. This is like a normal, and also it's an American that develops the product. So not someone well known right now. Yeah. All right. Will Michigan climate change to get warmer with no more snow? She said it'll continue to be hotter than Hades in the summer and snowier than ever in the winter. Yeah. Okay, I think we're going to close it off here. I will see you guys next Wednesday. I'll probably put up another poll to see what you want to talk about for Wednesday. And I will see you more in the morning hours for that because I like to do the channelings in the morning, typically for Wednesday. All right. I'll see you soon. Please do subscribe. It helps a ton. If you haven't, please go ahead and do that, like and subscribe. You can find more about me at PamelaAralyn.com. We've got that link to the top of the chat. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.